Después de que me tienen tan contento, me tienen caminando.
Nada más hacer el recordatorio de los trabajos que se llevaron a cabo el día de ayer, y a partir de ello vamos a incorporar esos acuerdos en la parte final de la orden del día de hoy. En consecuencia, le pido al doctor general Enrique García, secretario técnico de la Conferencia Nacional del Sistema Penitenciario, verifique el establecimiento del orden.
¿Cómo no, señor presidente? Nuevamente, muy buenos días a todos. En esta tercera sesión ordinaria de la Conferencia Nacional del Sistema Penitenciario, contamos con 29 titulares de los sistemas penitenciarios estatales. Tenemos un representante del mismo y uno que por cuestiones de trabajo se disculpó. Por lo que, de conformidad con el artículo 8º y 11 de los estatutos de la Conferencia Nacional del Sistema Penitenciario, tenemos quórum y todas y cada una de las decisiones que se tomen.
Necesito tan amable de dar lectura al orden del día y someter a consideración del pleno para la aprobación.
Bueno, señor presidente. La orden del día, que tienen todos a su disposición en su carpeta, tiene los siguientes puntos a tratar. Primero, el nuevo modelo de centros de reclusión. Segundo, el Consejo Empresarial para la Reinserción Social. Tercero, manuales de administración, operación y procedimientos en materia penitenciaria. Y ahí se abrirá un punto de paneles de discusión. El primero de ellos, el Sistema Penitenciario Nacional en la reforma de justicia penal. El segundo, los derechos de la población penitenciaria y el diagnóstico nacional en el sistema penitenciario. El tercero, las atribuciones y actuación del juez de ejecución de sentencias. Y ponemos a consideración de ustedes esta orden de día. Si ustedes no tienen ningún inconveniente o aportar algún punto de discusión más, les pido se manifiesten levantando la mano. Está aprobado por unanimidad, señor presidente.
Bien, muchas gracias. Bueno, pues para dar paso al trabajo de esta orden del día, y para discutir el primer punto, le pido a los señores VERACRUZ y al señor Bruce Ornstein de sacar de Bobolí que procedan con la exposición del tema nuevo modelo de centro de reclusión. Por favor, señor Bruce y Ornstein.
Buenos días. En primer lugar, deseo agradecerles por haber invitado a CJA a una ciudad tan hermosa y por ofrecernos esta oportunidad de compartir algunos de los trabajos con los que hemos estado ayudando al subsecretario Patiño y a su personal durante los últimos 2 años. Hemos aprendido mucho y hemos entablado muchas amistades y relaciones profesionales valiosas. Y decimos haber sido de igual valor para México y el sistema penitenciario federal. Esperamos con ansias la próxima fase para presentar el programa del modelo federal para el funcionamiento de las facilidades. Para dejar de castigarlos con mi patético español, hablar en inglés y un profesional les ofrecerá una tradición al español para que comprendan. Again, good morning, and thank you for having CGA or CGL here to participate in your conference. We are truly humbled and honored to be here amongst you, and we again appreciate the opportunity to present the model program that Senor Patiño and his staff and and the Organo and all of SSP has worked so hard in the past 2 years to create. I want to first begin by just giving some idea of what the model program for Mexico is in very simplistic terms. It is a creation of a new philosophy of corrections in the Mexico federal system. And it's something that was developed by your peers with our assistance only, and some professional experiences that we brought from other countries throughout the world that we've worked with in the past. In the American system and in many other foreign countries, a new attitude has come about in dealing with the penitentiary systems in order to not only lessen the burden of expense and the cost to taxpayers and the citizens, but to also make a difference in the rehabilitation of the offenders so that we don't continue to incarcerate individuals over and over and over again, and therefore again affecting us financially. Mr. Patino presented us with some ideas and some philosophies of his own and his staff, and where they wanted to go with the system, what they wanted to create, and we assisted by giving them some avenues and some options to get to that point. I'm not sure if the slideshow is up, but I have a presentation I'm going to go through very quickly. And my colleague Bruce Ornstein will also present some technology advances that we're implementing and working on inside of the penitentiary system. See. You can go to the next slide, please. Our challenge was to modernize the penitentiary system quickly by using existing facilities and creating, at the same time, new infrastructure, and then developing the long-term expansion capacity. It was identified that the federal system was short on bed capacity, and that the states were taking on a lot of the burden from the federal system. So rather than abandon what infrastructure was in the country already, we had to figure out how we would utilize that infrastructure, those facilities that were 80, 90, or even more complete, but had yet to be put into operation. And in order to do that, we had to look at the big picture and develop the strategic plan for the country, as opposed to just a focused federal system, state system, or a single facility. So the first task was to develop a strategic plan. The second task was to develop the system model program, which I just alluded to provide a basis for what a federal facility would be in the future. Anything new built would become a part of that model and would follow the philosophy of that model. It's not something that is intended to be point for point specific on every single facility and every situation, but rather a guide for anything in the future that was built. And it again follows the long-term strategic plan as opposed to looking at now in the current time and what the current need is, but let's look at what our future needs will be and how do we address those needs. Second, expanding the system capacity, extremely important, and we had to do it quick. And we had some infrastructure again, and we had some space that needed to be utilized. And we also had a professional staff available, not only in the state systems, but also in the federal systems. And they were key and instrumental in the development of the program itself. And then fourth, last but not least, one of the major tasks was to modernize some of the mechanisms within each facility. Let's see what modern features, what equipment, some of the stuff that you've seen outside in the displays, what's available for Mexico. What can we do with it to create a better system and a better environment, not only for inmates that would rehabilitate them, but also, more importantly, what kind of environment do we want our staff to be in? What position do we want to put them in? Something that we had a very hard time accepting and understanding in my country, but in many others as well, is it's not only the inmates that are in these facilities. Our officers that we expect to secure these inmates, that we expect to help rehabilitate these inmates, they live there practically on a daily basis. They've got to be provided with an environment that will be conducive to rehabilitation of these inmates. It's very easy to forget about the officers, and we did it for years and years in the U.S. And finally, I think in the last 20 years, we're realizing more and more that we've got to create the proper environment for our staff to work and feel professional and feel like they're making a difference, and give them the tools to make a difference and not take that for granted. The strategic plan, the future goals of the system, we didn't develop these goals. These goals were given to us. Mr. Patino and his staff presented us with where they wanted to go, what direction you wanted to go with the system. I admire Mr. Patino and his staff for their ambition. They're taking cues